You know, we all live our lives surrounded by stories. But they aren't just for entertainment, right? They're kind of the blueprint for our reality. They shape how we see everything. But what if some stories weren't meant to be lived in, but to be taken apart? What if by seeing how they work, we could learn to build our own lives? That's exactly what we're going to get into today.
We always talk about getting lost in a good book, don't we? Using it as an escape hatch from the real world, a way to just check out for a while. But what if we've got that completely backward? What if the most powerful stories aren't an escape at all?
Just think about this for a second. What if some stories are designed to do the exact opposite of putting you to sleep? They're there to jolt you awake, to make you really look at the world, at reality itself, and at how stories are told in the first place. Now, there's a name for this kind of story, a specific literary tool that guides us on this whole journey. It's called metafiction.
So what on earth is that? Well, to put it simply, metafiction is a story that knows it's a story. Yeah, seriously, it's the kind of book that pulls back the curtain and shows you all the gears and levers working behind the scenes. It's not pretending to be a window into another world. It's proudly yelling, "Hey, I'm a book. I'm made of words and ideas."
And believe it or not, this isn't some newfangled idea. Authors have been playing this game for centuries. I mean, think about Shakespeare putting a play inside of a play, or writers like Henry Fielding who just stopped the story to talk directly to you, the reader. When Jane Austen made fun of the over-the-top novels of her day, she was doing this. She was critiquing the story formulas that came before her. And intertextuality, that's just when stories borrow from other stories, reminding us that it's all one big, amazing conversation.
See, all these tricks have always been about pushing the envelope. By breaking the unwritten rules of how you're supposed to tell a story, these authors force us to stop and think about the rules themselves. They're not just telling a tale, they're questioning the very act of telling tales.
And this whole self-aware thing has definitely evolved over time. Way back in the 1700s, you had guys like Lawrence Sterne literally messing with the book itself, putting in blank pages, weird drawings. Then in the early 1900s, the modernists like James Joyce made the language the main event, constantly reminding you that you're reading a piece of art. But then in the 1980s, postmodern writers took it to a whole other level. They started using these exact same tools to question something massive, the official story of history.
And that, right there, is the big shift.
A traditional novel, it wants to be a crystal clear window. It wants you to forget your reading and just fall into its world. But metafiction, it's a mirror. It reflects the author, it reflects you, and it reflects the whole act of storytelling. It doesn't want you to suspend your disbelief. It wants you to get curious about it. It wants you to see the frame.
Okay, and this is where it gets really, really cool. Once stories started looking inward at themselves, it was only a matter of time before they turned that gaze outward, onto the biggest story we all share, history. So this led to something with a very fancy name, historiographic metafiction. But don't worry, the idea is simple. These are novels that rewrite historical events, not to give you the real scoop, but to prove a point, that history itself is a story. It's constructed, it's written by someone, with a point of view, with heroes and villains, just like any other piece of fiction. And this quote just nails it. The goal isn't to say the past never happened. No, not at all. It's about fighting the idea that there's only one single official version of it. By retelling these past events, authors crack them open, making them relevant to us right now, and stopping them from being just some dusty, closed chapter in a textbook. And all of a sudden, that line between fiction and the real world gets super blurry, doesn't it? We start to see how much of our reality is built on stories. The ones we learn in school, the ones our culture tells us, and yeah, the ones we tell ourselves.
So, let's tie all of this together, because this isn't just some abstract literature lesson. This is about making a huge shift in your own life, from just being a passive reader of your story to becoming the active writer.
I mean, really, what does learning how a book tears itself apart have to do with your day-to-day life? Well, as it turns out, everything.
This right here, this is the absolute heart of it all. Metafiction doesn't just look in the mirror. By showing us the author's fingerprints all over a novel, it trains our eyes to spot the constructed bits of our own reality. It shows us that the world we live in is also a kind of text, written by the scripts of our culture, our families, and our own inner monologue.
You've seen this in movies, right? The character who suddenly realizes they're in a story. At first, it's chaos, but then it's total freedom. It's a wake-up call. They can start to mess with the plot. Well, it's the same for us. The moment we recognize the invisible scripts we've been following, we gain the incredible power to go off script.
And that brings us to this amazing idea, narrative sovereignty.
It's basically the ultimate form of personal freedom. It's the power to not just live out a story someone else wrote for you, but to consciously understand it, question it, and become its author.
So how do we get there? Well, we can actually borrow the playbook from Metafiction. It's 3 simple steps. First, you learn to see the script. Identify the stories and beliefs you've just been accepting as fact. Second, you question the narrator. Ask yourself, where did this story come from? Whose voice is this, really? Is it even mine? And finally, the most powerful step of all, you become the author. You pick up the pen and you decide consciously what this next chapter is all about.
Ultimately, what Metafiction screams from the rooftops is that no story is set in stone. Not the story of our past, and definitely not the story of you. It hands us the tools to not just be characters in our own lives, but to be the writers. So I'll just leave you with this one question to chew on. If your life is a story, who's holding the pen?